the Middle podcast, the podcast dedicated to the music, movies, and culture of Generation X.
What is up, slackers, and welcome to another episode of the Stuck in the Middle podcast. I am your host, Jason Eck, and I don't really have much in the way of housekeeping this week. Not too much in the way of tales of tribulation and woe. It's been kind of an okay week. Still dealing with some shit with my daughter and just life in general, but, you know, It is what it is kind of thing, and just trying to be as positive as possible, and been considering a whole bunch of different things, including some interesting emails I've received about podcasting as of late, some avenues that I may explore that may help this podcast. So we'll see what's going on there. I haven't been great about doing my social media posts, so if anyone is sometimes I think spurred on to see a new episode because I've posted something and you didn't see something this past week, my bad. I have artwork and all this ready to go. And frankly, I just didn't get to it because it was busy. So it's been good, but busy. You know, we've had a couple of illnesses go through the house and those kind of things, and over a holiday weekend. And it felt less like a holiday, honestly, just chores being done and like stuff happening and like working on getting ready for the new school year, which for my kids starts later this week. And no one's real keen on coming to terms with the fact that summer is essentially over. And it's like looking at my pool and going, are there going to be any more super hot days? It's not heated. So, you know, it seems a little bit chilly, but I'm still doing the work and getting the yard work done and being prepared for that change of season. So I got up this morning for work and it was just that chill in the air. Now, I really like fall. I really do. It's one of my favorite times of the year. Summer and fall, my two favorites. Spring is fine, but that early part of spring is so bitterly cold. Not a huge fan of winter, but I wouldn't want to live somewhere that there was no winter. I don't know if there's some happy medium somewhere geographically where it's like, it's not too bad. Yeah, you get some snow, but it's not freezing cold yet. Maggie and I always talk about when we retire, retiring up north. Crazy. I know. But anyway, I don't really think there's much else to kind of go over other than the fact that I'm glad that you're all here. Trying to find opportunities for gratitude. Been listening to a lot of little woo-woo podcasts about some stuff recently. Not that I'm going to turn into some new ager. Not that that's a bad thing, but more like paranormal. Just interesting things, at least things that I find interesting, and the potential for a future guest, which I'm kind of stoked about, but we'll see. We'll see. I never seem to be able to make those connections. I try and I put feelers out and I'm like doing DMs and I'm trying all that stuff to get guests on the show. But I just think, you know, I'm a pretty small podcaster, and I think that everyone is rightfully. So don't get me wrong. I'm not, you know, slacking on anyone, but anyone who has any kind of legitimate following, I don't really offer much. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what's going on. So what's this episode about tonight? That's why you're all here. You're like, Jason, 4 minutes in and just about 4 minutes in and you're ready to go? Get into the topic? Holy cow. Yeah, getting in, getting out. I always say that, right? I'm going to get in there. I'm going to get out. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to dawdle. But I'm stalling a little bit. Pad some time. Get some extra time in for those mid-roll ads that give you a penny. Anyway. Hey, anyone want to sponsor the show? Hit me up on Instagram. All right. So I did the episode recently about one-hit wonders, right? And that's kind of a neat thing, because I think that you hear those songs on the radio today. Now, what's oftentimes more difficult to find, and you sometimes have to dig in a rabbit hole on streaming services, what about those one-season wonders? I'm talking about shows that popped up, may or may not have had an impact at the time, and seemingly disappeared as quickly as they came. Now, sometimes it's a matter that it just didn't fare well in the ratings. Others have unique lineages, and I think that's kind of fascinating. So I talked about on one of the episodes about how there's kind of a regurgitation of content. And I think a lot of people have talked about that. I think more recently, it's becoming more obvious that filmmakers, TV producers, they're going back to the well of already established properties. Now, it's one thing if you're going to do a new twist or a new take on it, rather than just a complete regurgitation. Or they'll take something like, we'll use Starsky and Hutch, right? Starsky and Hutch had comedic elements, but it was meant to be a dramedy. And then you have the Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson, like comedic remake. They do that. They make them overtly comedic because the campiness makes more sense comedically than playing it earnestly. Same thing for the Dukes of Hazzard remakes and those kind of things. Because some of the shows from the 70s and the 80s, in hindsight, maybe appear to be hokey. Now, personally, I find them, based upon the time period in which they were created, to be very wholesome and to be, like, legitimate. I don't look at it as hokey. I just look at it, oh, what a great 80s TV show. But a couple of these that I'm going to mention have spawned things down the road. And I think the first one that's so interesting to me, and I just want to say, some of you are going to go, well, wait a minute. It wasn't necessarily one season. But here we go. First on the list, 1978, Battlestar Galactica. Now, I don't know about you. I had Battlestar Galactica toys. Like, I really dug that series. I'm like, what, 4 or 5 years old here. And I remember being absolutely blown away. Now, mind you, 1978 is a year after Star Wars blew up huge. But here you had Lorne Greene as Commander Adama, who is already legendary. He's an icon, right? Bonanza, Lorne Greene. Cowboy. And here he is in this futuristic world. Richard Hatch, and of course, Dirk Benedict. And they are a group of humans fleeing destruction of their homeworld aboard the Battlestar Galactica. And of course, who is chasing them? The Cylons. Now, I don't know about you, but I would go up to the fan in the summer and talk like the Cylons. They were cool. And admittedly, like the starfighters were very reminiscent of X-Wings, but they had their own style altogether. And that whole launch sequence, when they were launching out into space, was so cool. It was like their little version of what you were getting in Star Wars with hyperspace. And I would think about just going down that tunnel, right, and launching into space. But it was the coolest freaking show. You had robot dogs. I mean, you had it all. But just to go through the cast, the main cast, Richard Hatch as Captain Apollo, Dirk Benedict as Lieutenant Starbuck. Starbuck. What a cool fucking name. Lorne Greene's Commander Adama, John Colicos as Baltar, Maren Jensen as Lieutenant Athena, Noah Hathaway as Boxy, Herbert Jefferson Jr. as Lieutenant Boomer, Tony Schwartz as Flight Sergeant Jolly, Laurette Sprang as Cassiopeia, Terry Carter as Colonel Ty, and Anne Lockhart as Lieutenant Sheba. Now, who was the leader of the Cylons? Yes, Baltar. So John Colicos is Baltar. He is the guy who betrayed the human race. And he'd done a bunch of stuff on stage and screen prior to this, and perfect for the role. He just seemed sleazy. So sleazy. But what a cool show. And let's see. The original writer of this, the creator, Glenn A. Larson, incorporated many themes from Mormon theology into the shows. Now, I haven't watched this since back then, and I didn't watch the reboot. And that's what's so interesting. The reboot lasted far longer, and that was starring Edward James Olmos as Adama. And I heard it was excellent, but I haven't watched it. But Battlestar Galactica ran starting September 17th, 1978 for 24 episodes. So now before you go, but wait, wasn't there more? There's a very short-lived 10-episode run of Galactica 1980, which came out on January 27th, 1980. And I don't even remember it, to be honest. Really stripped down budget, because that's all they can get approved for. All they can get approved for. And it wasn't as well received. And I don't think it had much of the original cast, or did they? I don't think so. Galactica 1980. Do they have the cast even listed here? I mean, a lot of the characters are the same, or at least it says it's the same. Yeah, it just says recurring cast. So I think people like Dirk Benedict were only in cameo or something to that effect. But anyway, what an amazing show. One of these days, I'm going to have to watch the updated version, which came out in like 2004 or something like that. Let's see. Because it definitely says it's a media franchise. Began with the original series, 1978. Short-run sequel, Galactica 1980. Reimagined version as a 2-part, 3-hour miniseries in 2004. That ran, then it became a television series, which ran from 2004 to 2009. And then a prequel series, Caprica, aired in 2010. But anyway, really cool show. Had its own unique take on things. Wasn't like this direct ripoff of Star Wars or anything like that. Really cool imagery. Really cool show. Only one season of the original series. So next, completely different genre. And I think it's because one of the stars went on to become so wicked famous that people just remember it. But it was only one season. And I'm talking about 1982-83, Square Pegs. The series follows Patty Green, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Lauren Hutchinson, Amy Linker, two awkward teenage girls desperate to fit in at Wee High School. So this is created by former Saturday Night Live writer Ann Beats. The pilot introduces an eclectic group of 8 freshmen on their first day at Wee High School. The series was acclaimed by critics for its realistic look at teenage life, reflecting a sensibility somewhat similar to the John Hughes teen comedies of later years. Yeah. One of my friends, I remember clearly, loved this show, and it seemed like it was way beyond us, because in 82, 83, like 8 years old, and it's like, what does that show have for me? But apparently, he really liked it. But bear in mind that the typical high school activity culture is personified by preppy Muffy P. Tepperman. Yes, that's right. Muffy. Played by who else? Jamie Gertz. I mean, awesome. Oh, that's right. Tracy Nelson was Jennifer DiNuccio. So Tracy Nelson, of course, the daughter of Ricky Nelson and the sister to the Nelson twins. I just can't live without your love and affection. Gunnar and Matt Nelson. She was in a bunch of stuff. Oh yeah, Matthew Nelson. And of course she is the granddaughter of Harriet Nelson of Ozzie and Harriet. which aired from 1952 to 1966. Her parents were musician and film actor Ricky Nelson and actress-artist Kristen Nelson. Yeah, I forgot she was on Square Pegs. I'm not sure I've ever seen a single actual episode of Square Pegs. I mean, I'm sure that I have. I'm wondering if this is even available to watch anywhere. It's just so interesting, though, too, to think about how we got so used to kind of our speak. And I think of like perfect examples or shows like 90210 or movies like Heathers and like some of the movies that I've talked about on the show before. But this concept of like the teen lingo and how people talk and these clicks, and you can take a listen to the click episode that I did. But here's the opening dialogue that appears in a montage of stills from the school in the opening credits. Lauren, listen, I've got this whole high school thing psyched out. It all breaks down into cliques. Patty, cliques? Lauren, yeah, you know, cliques. Little in-groups of different kids. All we have to do is click with the right click, and we can finally have a social life that's worthy of us. Patty, no way. Not even with cleavage. I tell you this year we're going to be popular. Oh, yeah? Yeah. Even if it kills us. I mean, just this whole concept of just trying to fit in is so universal. And let's see, Sarah Jessica Parker. 1965. One of ours. So, I mean, this is for you little bit older Xers. This would have been right in your lane at this time period. Like, this would have been completely aligned with what you might have been experiencing as a high school freshman. And I think it's kind of interesting, the fact that she would have been, let's see, 20 in 85. So that means she's still a teen. She's like 17 when the show came out. So pretty right on. And Amy Linker, what else did she do? I don't recall her being in much of anything else. Not really. Yeah, don't really see much else. I mean, a couple of credits here and there, but nothing that I really recognize. So anyway, Square Pegs, one season. Yeah, I think we all kind of remember seeing Sarah Jessica Parker in that show. Yeah. What's next? Okay. I definitely watched an episode or two of this, and I love how it's phrased that it's a American superhero television series, because certainly there are superpowers afoot here. Manimal, which ran from September 30th to December 17th, 1983. And that's it. That is all she wrote for Manimal. Let's see. How many episodes were there? 8 episodes. That's it. That's it. But the transformation, oh my gosh. He would transform into a hawk and a Black Panther in nearly every episode. In some episodes, he would transform into a third animal, such as a horse, a dolphin, a bear, or bull, with the transformation taking place off screen, though he was once shown becoming a snake. I'd have to go back and look at that. But the transformation sequences were designed and created by Academy Award-winning SFX artist Stan Winston. But of course, this was starring Simon McCorkindale as Jonathan Chase. Rounding out the cast was Melody Anderson as Brooke McKenzie, Glenn Turman as Tyrone. In the pilot, he was replaced by Michael D. Roberts. Renee Santoni as Lieutenant Nick Rivera, and William Conrad as the narrator. Yeah, I mean, Manimal. I don't know. I mean, I think of stuff like My Mother the Car, which was like a complete comedy back in the day. And hey, I can change into a car. Or was just that the mother was reincarnated a car? What's the show that I'm thinking of where the dude transforms? That might be on my list. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, Manimal. I remember the opening credits And that's about it. I'm wondering if this is available for streaming, if nothing more than just guilty pleasure of checking out the 8 episodes of Manimal, which, by the way, had a 90-minute pilot. When a group of thieves devise a plan to hijack a shipment of nerve gas, Detective Brooke McKenzie must stop them. She teams up with Dr. Jonathan Chase, a man that knows the secrets that divide man and animal, and who is trained in African techniques that allow him to transform into different animals. By the way, the pilot stars Ursula Andress as Karen Jade. Oh, the 80s. It's just all a fever dream. So next we have another, again, phrased as short-lived, American superhero television series, also produced by Glenn A. Larson of Battlestar Galactica. And that, of course, Automan. It consciously emulates the visual stylistics of the Walt Disney Pictures live-action film Tron, but in the context of a superhero TV series. The series was later shown in reruns on the Sci-Fi Channel. So Automan, otherwise known as the Automatic Man, follows the adventures of a police officer and computer programmer named Walter Nebeker, played by Desi Arnaz Jr., who has created an artificially intelligent crime-fighting computer program that generated a hologram played by Chuck Wagner, able to leave the computer world at night and fight crime. So yes, we have an AI superhero back in 1983. It aired for 12 episodes, although 13 were originally made. So there's one unaired, but I'm wondering if it's available somewhere. Anyway, the Automan costume appears to glow on screen due to its retro-reflective sheeting designed by 3M. So 3M, many practical uses, including this 3D AI superhero, Automan. I don't know. Let's see. Is there anything else? I definitely, I see a picture, and I'm remembering Desi Arnaz Jr. being on the show and like being the cop. But man, I really don't remember if I've ever really seen the show. But the cast is Desi Arnaz Jr. as Walter Nebeker, Chuck Wagner as Automan, otherwise known as Otto J. Man. That must be his real world character. Chuck, let's see, Robert Lansing as Lieutenant Jack Curtis, Gerald S. O'Laughlin as Police Captain E.G. Boyd, and Heather McNair as Roxanne Caldwell. But it does say here that despite Automan's many fictional powers, he also had weaknesses. Automan's excessive use of electricity would often mean he would suffer from power shortages during the daytime, so he was rarely active in sunlight. Yes. But he also, another prominent feature is Automan had the ability to wrap himself around Walter as a means of protecting him. They would appear as one person, but because Walter was inside Automan, he would inadvertently end up speaking in two voices. I have to watch this. This is insane. Like, I don't remember any of this. He's got a bunch of moves here. Very, very curious. But he did have his autocar, which was brought to life in the real world using a real-life Lamborghini Countach LP400. All decked out. Very, very interesting. So, Automan. Now, this is the show that I'm about to mention, excuse me, that really spurred me to do this episode. Because I really only remember the press and the trailers, the constant advertisements for this exciting new show. Now, again, 1980s, stuff like the X-Men was becoming like a really big deal. So, basically, mutants. I'm talking about the Misfits of Science, a science fiction comedy drama which aired on NBC from October 4th, 1985 to February 21st, 1986, which is notable for 3 performers, in my opinion. But first, the team is formed by Dr. Billy Hayes, a research scientist at the Humanidyne Institute who specializes in human anomalies. He works with shrinking Dr. Elvin L. Lincoln, and together they recruit electrically powered Johnny Bukowski and rock and roll musician and Gloria Danello, a telekinetic teenager. Okay. So the name Misfits of Science and other conceptual ideas were the brainchild of then president of NBC Entertainment, Brandon Tartikoff. That name should be very well known for anyone who was following TV. He explained the series will rely on the National Enquirer for story ideas. It's loosely inspired by the dynamics we saw in Ghostbusters, sort of a kickback Friday type of show. And the 9th episode was the first paid writing job for Tim Kring, who later originated and produced the thematically similar Heroes in 2006. But the 3 main characters. So it's funny, the guy who shrinks is, of course, 7'2". I believe he's 7'2". Yes, 7'2", Kevin Peter Hall, who is the original Predator. He was Harry in Harry and the Hendersons. And here he's Dr. Elvin L. Lincoln on the Misfits of Science. I mean, that's a big dude. His father, by the way, was 6'6", and his mom was 6'2". And Hall was the tall of his brothers, all of whom were at least 6'5". So anyway, so we have Kevin Peter Hall. You have Dean Paul Martin, who is or was the son of Dean Martin, who had remained a member of the California Air National Guard. And he died in a crash during a military training flight in 1987 at the age of 35. So not only was he a working actor, as well as a pop singer, he was also a member of the California Air National Guard. And just shows that just even in training activities, there is such a risk when you're flying, an F-4 Phantom. And that's exactly what happened. But anyway, here he was on the Misfits of Science. And then finally, perhaps the most famous of them all, the first starring role for one Courtney Cox, who at the time, I think, was actually a teenager or just out of her teens. She was like 20. Let's see. When was she born? Yeah, she was 21 years old when the show came out. She probably filmed it when she was 20, and she was playing a telekinetic teenager. But I just remember the ads over and over and over again. Coming this fall, the Misfits of Science. And actually, when did she do? Yeah, interesting. So first came the Dancing in the Dark video, then came the Misfits of Science. And I do kind of recall that being, hey, wait, that's the girl from the Dancing in the Dark. Because she became like a star just for getting on stage and dancing with the boss. But yeah, Misfits of Science, really interesting concept. It just never really took off. But let's see. So Dean Paul Martin was the leader of the team, and he had no superpowers. So he's Dr. Billy Hayes. Like I mentioned, Kevin Peter Hall, Elvin L. Lincoln, he shrinks. The recurring joke after such transformations is that he always has to put on a tiny change of clothes he carries with him for his small size. That's hilarious. Mark Thomas Miller as Johnny B. Bukowski, a rock and roll musician who has electrically shocked on stage, which gives him electrical powers. Courtney Cox, Gloria Danello, a troubled telekinetic teenager with a history of juvenile delinquency and a mother in a mental institution who claims Gloria's father is from outer space. Gloria can only use her telekinesis on things that she can see. Using a blindfold renders her powerless. You have Diane Savita as Miss Nance, the scientist's secretary. Then you have Mickey Jones as Arnold Beef, Iceman, Beefinator, who has the power to freeze anything he touches from placing himself in an experimental cryogenic cold storage back in the year 1937. So he has been thought out, and here he is. But Beef only appears in the pilot episode due to legal objections from Marvel Comics, which published a similarly named character in X-Men. But the character continues to use the ice cream truck. Anyway, there you have it. You have 16 episodes, and that was all she wrote. Now, here's one that I thought was one season, and I'm just sharing it because I'm like, oh yeah, this show. And I saw that it got 2 seasons for a total of 41 episodes. And I'm talking about Sledgehammer, an American satirical police sitcom produced by New World Television. The series was created by Alan Spencer and stars David Rash as Inspector Sledgehammer. He's done a ton of work, but this was his real only starring role from what I can tell. Oh, actually, he's known for his main role as Carl Muller in the HBO drama series Succession. See, I haven't seen Succession, but apparently that's his big role, other than Sledgehammer. Anyway, it was just a silly show, and for whatever reason, I remember my dad loving this, and he just loved that brand of humor, that kind of over-the-top, completely played as like a, I guess you could say it's a send-up of like Dirty Harry, and like, yeah, it's definitely a satirical view of that kind of cop, where it's like the dirty cop, but it's kind of like Get Smart, you know what I mean? Which is like the American James Bond, completely silly and over the top. With, Don Adams. Yes. Oh my gosh, Don Adams. He did so many. Maxwell Smart. But then like other, like the Nude Bomb, Get Smart Again, revival series. But he was also, wasn't he Tennessee Tuxedo? Missed it by that much. Love that guy. Love that guy. But anyway, it's very much that feel, that style of kind of over the top, poking fun at these kind of tropes of like the Clint Eastwood cop style. But that went for 2 seasons, not 1. But now we're headed into the late 80s, into the early 90s. And man, the ladies loved the guy who starred in this one. Talking about the spinoff from 21 Jump Street, Booker, starring Richard Grieco. My high school girlfriend, she had a poster, Richard Grieco as Booker, up on the wall. It was like Def Leppard posters and Richard Grieco. That was the thing, man. And I guess the whole point is he got really, I guess, well received by the 21 Jump Street crowd, but apparently there were some issues there. I don't know if he had like infighting or whatever with Johnny Depp or the cast there, whatever it is, but the character itself was very, very popular, and they decided they were going to spin him off into his own TV series, which ran for 22 episodes. But you look through the notable guest stars. Peter DeLuise, who was obviously on 21 Jump Street, actually also Holly Robinson Peete, Stephen Williams, who was Captain Adam Fuller, but Jason Priestley, Thomas Hayden Church, Ben Vereen, Mariska Hargitay, Don Davis, Maura Tierney, Marcia Cross, Don Cheadle, Vanity, Getty Watanabe, Tawny Katane, James Hong, Heavy D, Without the Boys, and Jay O. Saunders. I mean, this was Fox still coming into its own as a network. He seemed to be completely bankable as a star, Richard Grieco, that is. But apparently it moved a couple of time slots and ultimately did not last past 1 season. Let's see. It doesn't really get into performance. It says here, Fox scheduled Booker as its Sunday night leadoff program. airing in the 6 p.m. slot that was vacated by its parent series, 21 Jump Street, which had moved to Monday nights. Booker was not the hit that its predecessor had been, with Fox eventually moving the show to 10 p.m. during the period when the network was programming past that hour on Sundays, and later canceling it the following season. Still very much a burgeoning network that was not running content 7 days a week. So Sunday was basically their lead off. It was Tracy Ullman's show, which, begat The Simpsons, which gave you 21 Jump Street. You had Married with Children. Like, that was the block on Sunday nights. But Richard Grieco, I don't think... Let's see. He did a couple of movies. Yeah, that's right. He did Mobsters. So Mobsters was like a who's who of the young up-and-comers in Hollywood playing versions of gangsters. Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Frank Costello, and Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. So it's Christian Slater as Luciano, Patrick Dempsey as Lansky, Costas Mandylor as Costello, and Richard Grieco as Siegel, with Michael Gambon, Anthony Quinn, Lara Flynn Boyle, and F. Murray Abraham in supporting roles. How'd this thing do at the box office? Budget was $23 million, box office was $20.2 million, and I have to be honest, I'm pretty sure I saw this in the movie theater. I mentioned the girlfriend, Richard Grieco, and I don't remember watching much of the movie, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Don't think that was the focus. Anyway, moving on, Richard Grieco. And I think he's had some real issues, some addiction issues and a whole bunch of stuff. He has voiced characters in several video games and appeared as himself. When's the last credit he has? Wow. I mean, he's still doing like straight to video movies, like regularly. Most recent one is Night of the Tommyknockers as Dirk. One TV credit in 2021. That's the most recent. Paper Empire. He was on It's Always Sunny back in 2016. And yeah, a couple of video game credits. But yeah, Richard Grieco. He was like super huge for like a minute. And yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Fame, it just comes and goes so fleetingly, despite like getting launched from a major TV show into your own series. And wow, he sold his first painting after being encouraged to do so by Dennis Hopper. His first painting sold for $11,000. Good for you, man. Good for you. So next is kind of not a guilty pleasure, and I didn't watch the whole thing necessarily, but then I was reminded how much I had enjoyed it because it has a tie-in with a more recent series. And I'm talking about 1990's The Flash, starring John Wesley Shipp as Barry Allen. And I mean, they did a lot with special effects at a time where that was pretty difficult to do, particularly with a super speedster here in The Flash, but also was starring Amanda Pays. And Amanda Pays was in a lot of cool stuff, including Max Headroom. Oh, shoot, Max Headroom. That went 2 seasons, by the way. It went 2 seasons, short seasons, 7 episodes each. So it's not technically a 1-season wonder. So anyway, but I always think of her in Max Headroom. And then, of course, she was in The Flash. Yeah, I was never a huge Barry Allen fan. So when this series came out, I was bummed out that it was Barry because in the 90s, it was Wally West. Okay, enough nerd talk, but that was just that wasn't my Flash. Yes, 70s, early 80s, that was my Flash, but I never really got into the character as much as I did when Kid Flash became the Flash during Crisis on Infinite Earths. So speaking of, fast forward into the Flash TV series on the CW, John Wesley Shipp came back as not only Barry Allen, but also as Jay Garrick from Earth 2. And it was just so cool for him to have that opportunity to play the Flash in universe and wear that classic costume, but then also wear a version of Jay Garrick's costume. It was very, very cool. And he's a fantastic actor. Really, really good. But he played Barry Allen's father, Henry, the Earth 3 Flash, Jay Garrick, and Earth 90's Barry Allen, which is his character from that original Flash TV series. The guy's been on soap operas. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, a lot of TV credits. Yeah, a lot of different stuff. Everything from Teen Wolf, but like One Life to Live. He did some voice work as well. Did a bunch of stuff in the CW universe. And also some films here and there. Anyway, it's one of those series that is available. It actually holds up quite a bit better than you would think. But you also have Mark Hamill as the Trickster. And this is when we were first starting to see Mark Hamill take on very different roles. Because obviously, Luke Skywalker, as wholesome as can be, playing a lot of villains, and obviously his voice turn as the Joker on Batman the Animated Series. But here he was the Trickster, which, by the way, was also brought back in the CW version of The Flash, which is just kind of a cool kind of homage to that era. Does it really list? Let's see. What are some of the other? Nightshade, The Prank. David Cassidy played Mirror Master. Michael Champion as Captain Cold. Billy Mummy was on the original Flash. Lois Nettleton as the Ghostess. Let's see. Anthony Stark as the Ghost. Yeah. Anyway, great show. Other guest stars in minor roles include Bryan Cranston as Philip Moses. That's a neat little factoid, and there you have it. Yeah. All right, so next, another, I don't know how it didn't land, and I'll admit, I think time slot might have been the issue. Also running on Fox, and in part, I'm surprised that it didn't do better, is because I thought it was very, very clever. And the lead actor here deserved to have top billing because at the time he'd become very popular for a couple of recurring characters on like Xena and Hercules. I'm talking about Bruce Campbell and the 1 season, 27 episode run of the Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., which was considered a weird Western created by Jeffrey Boehm and Carlton Cuse. Ran for 27 episodes in the Fox network in 93-94. Set in the American West of 1893, the series follows its title character, a Harvard-educated lawyer turned bounty hunter hired by a group of wealthy industrialists to track and capture outlaw John Bly and his gang. So, of course, Bruce Campbell as Briscoe. I mean, there's sight gags, and there's steampunk, and there's over-the-top situations. That's why they talk about like some of the weird Westerns. You had diving suits, motorcycles, rockets, airships, the search for new technology and progressive ideas. What the writers of the show called the coming thing is a central theme throughout the series. The coming thing is we're always looking for what's the next cool big thing and kind of working that in to these concepts. Hey, I've got this invention. It's going to be huge. What is it? It's the phonograph. It's just such fun stuff. And honestly, I didn't feel as though Bruce Campbell was like just chewing up scenery either. Like playing it with just enough snark. And of course, there's this whole thing about the orb. And like the orb is like this recurring thing. So the murder of Briscoe County Sr. and the discovery of the orb sets into motion the major plots of the series. It's cool stuff. It's cool stuff. And again, I got to find out if this is streaming, because I just thought even the few episodes that I saw, I really enjoyed it. And I don't know why, other than the fact that 93, 94, yeah, TV was not interesting to me in that time period. There was nothing I was going to be watching on a weekly basis in 93, 94. I think that's largely probably the issue. And I wonder if the target demographic audience might have been people like us, and I had other shit to do with my time. None of it was probably good in 93, 94. In fact, I know that it wasn't. But yeah, I just never really sat down to watch it. Apparently the whole episode, all the episodes are available on DVD, and I'm going to see if this is available to stream. Let's see here. Because I would really recommend, if you haven't seen it, I think it's probably worth it. Let's see. Ooh, I don't like that. That's saying that it's per episode. Yeah, I don't want to do that. This is one of those things that it's so entitled to be like, I don't want to pay a lot. Why isn't it on Tubi? Is it on Tubi? What? Is it on Tubi? Oh, it's not on Tubi. It says content unavailable. I don't know why they do this. They show it and it comes up, gives you a whole synopsis, and then you actually can't watch it. Because it says here, season 1, episode 1, pilot, and then you can't click on it. Annoying. Okay, well, it is what it is. But if you haven't, check it out. All right, and the last one, we're now jumping forward to 2002. And I think one of the greatest travesties in Fox TV history. And while the creator and writer has been canceled and uncanceled and canceled again so many different times, has certainly sullied his reputation, it doesn't change the fact that we certainly deserved more than one episode of Firefly. I have the entire season on Blu-ray. I have Serenity, the film. What a great cast, clever writing. But if you don't already know, I'm just going to go through this. We have Nathan Fillion as Malcolm Mal Reynolds, who's the owner and captain of the Serenity and a former independent sergeant in the Battle of Serenity Valley. For those who don't know, it is a war that's being fought against the overlanders of the Independent Army, the Browncoats, and he is a cunning, capable leader and a skilled fighter. He's awesome. But he's willing to be a thief and a smuggler, and he'll kill if he has to, but he's a good guy. You have Gina Torres as Zoe Allen Washburn, second in command aboard the Serenity, a loyal wartime friend of Mal and Walsh's wife. And who's Walsh? Alan Tudyk as Hoban Washburn. For those of you who don't know, he is a leaf on the wind, man. He is a leaf on the wind. Morena Baccarin as Inara Serra, a companion, which is a 26th century cross between a geisha and a courtesan or a mistress. I said all those words wrong. Geisha, courtesan, or mistress. Enunciate, brother. Okay. Basically kind of like an escort, if you will, but very, very high end. Adam Baldwin is Jane Cobb. Jane, that's a girl's name. He is not always the best guy, but he's solid. He's solid. Yeah, it's a whole thing. You'd have to watch it. There's some betrayal, but like, is it for the right reasons, the wrong reasons? And he's kind of a good boy, takes care of his mother, kind of a good guy. I have a t-shirt. I'm trying to remember the phrase. Oh my gosh. Totally forgot what it is. It's right upstairs. It's his catchphrase. It's awesome. Can't remember. What is it? You are seriously something. Oh my gosh. Oh, I can't find it. Yeah, it's not here. I'll have to go ahead and post something another time. Let's see. We also have Jewel State as Kawinit Kaylee Fry, the ship's mechanic. She's awesome. She is wholesome and great and wonderful. Wonderful character. Sean Mayer as Simon Tam, a trauma surgeon of the first caliber, ranked top 3% in his class, who is trying to keep his sister, played by Summer Glau, River Tam, who is a child prodigy, and they messed with her and turned her into a weapon. You'd have to see it to believe it. Some kick-ass fight scenes out of Goldwood River. And then finally, Ron Glass, yes, from Barney Miller fame, as Daryl Book Shepherd. He's equivalent to a pastor. Although presented as a devout Christian, Book has profound, unexplained knowledge about criminal activities, police corruption, military strategy, tactics, and weapons. You'll have to figure it out. Again, check it out. Check out the series, then watch the movie. It was ridiculous. It was one of those Friday night time slots, which has never been a great night, particularly if you're going for a particular demographic. I think it's such a great show. It really is. Yeah, and according to Joss Whedon, his vision was, nothing will change in the future. Technology will advance, but we will still have the same political, moral, and ethical problems as today. But there's been games, comics, action figures. Yeah, I mean, it's really great. It's a really great realized universe, and it's a Western in space. It really is. And the locales and the interpersonal banter between the crew members and kind of the running story with River. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, well written, and the movie does kind of pay off, like likely where the series would have ended. And I think it was a nice kind of send off for these characters and very, very fitting. So if you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. And there we are. That is the one season wonders, if you will, the single season series that did make an impact, have somehow entered into the consciousness without being hits, yet something unique enough about them that they're memorable, even if they didn't have big hit written all over them. Battlestar Galactica, perfect example. And Manimal has become kind of a meme because people who remember it go, this is bonkers. Like, who thought of this? What a weird thing. But yeah, what are some of your favorites? And are there shows that I missed? By all means, reach out to me. Let me know. And how do you do that? You can email me at stuckinthemiddlepod@yahoo.com. You can find me on Instagram, X, and YouTube at StuckPodX. Head on over to the Facebook page, Stuck in the Middle, a Gen X podcast. Please like, comment, share, leave 5-star reviews, and most importantly, please subscribe to the podcast. So until next time, later, slackers.